It is the 9th of September 2025. A very good morning to you. This is Morning Cafe. Karibu sana. My name is Ann Odida.
My name is Fred Ndimuli. We are here as always just to kickstart your day the best way we know how to, with the dailies and everything else that you need to know.
Everything in between. All right, let's take a look at the local dailies. We start off with the Star.
Hata leo mtu wa PNG alituwekea zote hapa, so you can actually just look at this.
The Standard, Lavish Addis flight.
Aliwacha ile ndege yake ya kawaida akapanda ingine mpya.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Majopo ya kutafuna, wanatafuna nini? Taifa Leo.
Director, wacha turudi huku. Director anasema tutaki gazeti zake, lakini director
you know, he has done it. Amefanya mambo mara mbili tatu.
Yes. Director, unaona hii hapa? Hii ni ya jana.
Oh, ni jana. Ulikuwa unasoma za jana.
You see, Kenya stares at mass job losses. We talked about it yesterday.
Tunaanzia hapa.
Okay. The Standard talks about Lavish Addis flight. Taifa Leo, majopo ya kutafuna.
Daily Nation, 1 million state workers gobble up half of taxes.
All right. The Star, wash. How Jubadati cash is laundered in Kenya.
And Jubaland now imekataa kutoka kwa headlines. From west to east, Ruto's global gamble backfiring matters diplomacy on the People Daily.
Finally, the Business Daily, Kenya Power hit hours rural homes spend 7 shillings 20 cents daily.
Yes, so those are the local dailies, and we'll be back to take a look at them in a short while.
All right, let's cross over our borders. Lakini before that.
Yes, State of the Nation will be having these three gentlemen: James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, Wakili Harrison Kenyanjui, and governance analyst Fwamba NC Fwamba in studio starting at 6:30 this morning. Do stand by for that.
All right. Later on today, being Biashara Tuesday, we'll be hosting Patrick Muraguri on matters SME competitiveness through digital tools. Tukivuka kule Bongo, tunaanza na gazeti la Mwananchi. Lissu azua mapya, aweka pingamizi. Ataja sababu kumkataa wakili wa serikali, aigomea pia mahakama akitaja vifungu vya kisheria, jopo la majaji kusikiliza kesi yake.
Na hii kesi ya Tundu Lissu, if you compare with what is happening in Uganda, it's the same thing. Even Kizza Besigye has boycotted court. He refused to go to court. Yeah.
Tundu Lissu makes it on the front page of the Mwananchi again. Sababu Tanzania kupaa takwimu za utawala bora. Sema kwa mujibu wa ripoti ya Chandler Good Government ya mwaka 2025, Tanzania inatajwa kushika nafasi ya 6 barani Afrika. Vilikuwa zaidi, CRDB yarejea kisasa baada ya maboresho na majaji watatu na hatima ya urais wa Mpina ACT. Dakika 45 za Makamba amtaja Samia, JK na John Pombe Magufuli. Gazeti la Mwananchi.
Still in Tanzania, we take a look at the Citizen. Alarm over scams as digital trade expands. That's a big headline there. Say a growing wave of social media and e-commerce scams is leaving thousands of Tanzanians financially and emotionally scarred, raising concerns about consumer protection in the digital economy. Watu wanagongwa kugongwa deadly. So there's a lot of online shopping fraud victims. A survey conducted by Go78 has revealed that 7 out of every 10 people in Tanzania have fallen victim to scams on social media or e-commerce platforms. Kenya si ati tuko tofauti sana, ni vile tumeanza kuchanuka kidogo. The survey findings, they say even when cases are reported, investigations are slow. Resources for cybercrime enforcement are limited, and jurisdictional ambiguities between agencies delay responses. They're still not sure how to deal with online fraud. In Kenya, pia, there's a law, but the execution of that law and the provisions therein, bado ni shida.
Digital Act? Yes.
DA property investors eye profits amid Airbnb boom, and CRDB Bank eyes Dubai after system upgrade. Lakini pale juu, High Court verdict on Mpina case now set for Thursday. This is the one presidential candidate who moved to court after he was denied a ticket to run for president in Tanzania with the party ACT. So maswala ya siasa kwa pale juu kidogo, lakini business getting prominence on the Citizen. That's Tanzania.
Lakini hata sasa akipatiwa hiyo ticket, see time is running anyway. So
Atangangana, you see, sometimes you run for other reasons, not to win, but you just run.
All right, let's cross over to Uganda now. Daily Monitor, no longer at case for NUP.
No longer at ease.
No longer at ease. All right. Crackdown the charging of 7 National Unity Platform party supporters in court yesterday, and the subsequent reported arrest of the deputy spokesperson and Nakawa East MP aspirant Alex Waiswa Mufumbiro paints a picture of a well-orchestrated crackdown on the opposition party. Number of party supporters close to Mr. Robert Kyagulanyi's inner circle, Bobi Wine, who have been arrested since May 6. Wako hapa mbele wote, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 supporters wa Bobi Wine. Over 2 million people to get new HIV prevention drug in Uganda, and the push and pull among sub-regions on return to party politics. On the top strip from Gulu 1964 to Kololo 2025, how Uganda's political parties always eat themselves. Wanajikula. Gazeti la Daily Monitor, Uganda.
On the front page of the New Vision, they steer clear of matters politics. Scramble for 1900 urban post starts. Okay, fine, it's still politics. Hundreds nominated for municipality city divisions on day 1. So yes, wanang'ang'ania ile civic polls, maswala ya jiji na vijiji, before the main elections come January next year. Museveni assures arts teachers of pay rise. That's there on the top strip. Lakini sababu wamempatia space pale wakamnyang'anya hii yake hapa chini ya kusalamia watu. Hapa iko Ugandan cleric Ngurait installed as bishop in the US. More features there on the front page of the New Vision. Abstinence a crown for teens. Matters abstinence. Kenya muliacha kuongea kuhusu abstinence.
Abstain.
Right. So those are the local dailies, and we'll be back to take a look at them in depth in a short while. For now, we focus on the weather forecast.
Hali ya anga, and we'll start off in Mandera. 26 degrees this morning, feels like 28. It's a partly cloudy day, and precipitation in Mandera today is 0 millimeters, highs of 36 degrees. Very hot day in Mandera.
Yes. In Nyahururu, which is relatively colder than most parts of the country, it's 11 degrees as we speak. A cloudy day, very chilly day. This is probably one of the lowest. We'll be looking at Limuru, but Nyahururu also very low. Highs of 23 degrees. Chances of rainfall there, 1.0 millimeters.
All right, that is the weather in Nyahururu today. Eldoret, it's 12 degrees this morning, a mostly cloudy day, highs of 24 degrees. Precipitation in Eldoret today is 0.5 millimeters, very minimal.
So Nyahururu and Eldoret zinakaa ni kama ziko sawa kiasi. Same. Malindi, the coastal town of Malindi in Kilifi County, 24 degrees currently, it feels like 26. Highs of 28 degrees, which is actually warmer than what we saw yesterday. A bit of precipitation, which is higher than any other part of the country, 2.6 millimeters of rainfall this partly cloudy day. Malindi.
All right, let's cross over to Limuru now. 12 degrees this morning, it's warm. 12.
Warmer than Nyahururu.
Yes. It's a cloudy day in Limuru. Precipitation here today is 6.1 millimeters, the highest amount of rainfall. It's raining as we speak, and it will rain siku yote.
Highs of 21.
Yes. Finally, weather in Nairobi.
In Nairobi, it's 16 degrees, which is way warmer than what we saw yesterday. They say that rain is likely starting at 4 p.m. this evening. It's a cloudy day. Highs of 23 degrees, more or less what we've seen in Nyahururu and Eldoret as well. Precipitation here, 11.1 millimeters, which is more than we've seen across the country. So Nairobi, do expect some rainfall today.
As early as this morning.
Yes.
All right, it's around
9 minutes past 6.
All right, tangalia
Traffic situation. Pale Pangani interchange ilianza kubuild up mapema sana, na nangojea refresh kidogo sababu hapa kutakuwa na shida. We can see already at 9 minutes past 6, ile stretch ya red pale Pangani interchange, it has moved up further to at least the Mathare Mental Hospital. That means there's a problem. By 1:30, probably it will have extended to the Utalii Drift and Up Survey. Meaning watu wa Thika Road leo kama hujafika kazini, inakani kama kuna shida kidogo pale. Kiambu Road, I had seen actually there's a place up around 4 ways wamefunga part of the road. Ni kama kuna mahali kuna barabara imecrack. So if you're coming from Kiambu Road, and I don't know why this one is not live, if you're coming from areas like Vendigua, Kist, and even Kiambu Town towards 4 ways, just before the 4 ways junction, there's a bit of a problem there on that stretch heading towards Kiambu. That will definitely result in a lot of traffic on Kiambu Road today. So kama hujatoka sahi, because ile traffic ita build up hapo, italeta shida. Other major roads, especially on the eastern side of the town, of the city, it's building up nicely along Outer Ring Road, areas around Pipeline, Feather and Tasia. Jogoo Road, nothing out of the ordinary. A stretch here along Shauri Moyo next to the City Stadium roundabout. It's building up slowly. And you can see Mudhurwa, it's also building up. Hii inakuanga green kawaida at this time of day. Like you can see that stretch of yellow, meaning there could be some heavy traffic around Mudhurwa area. And as you get into the Haile Selassie Avenue around Marikiti inside the CBD. Other roads, major roads, Mombasa Road is looking good into town from Lolongo. Wayaki Way on the other side is also looking green into town. Hizi barabara zingine ambazo huwa tusumbuani nazo hazina shida kama kawaida. The biggest problem is at the Pangani interchange this morning. We'll try and take a look at it at 1:30 the hour.
All right, let's have the quote of the day.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
All right, let's take a look at the local dailies, and we start off with the People Daily. From west to east, Ruto's global gamble backfiring, and this story is on page 4. His bold diplomacy won him state honors and trade deals, but a number of missteps are pushing allies to ask whether he's worth the bet. 3 years in since he took the oath of office.
I think matters diplomacy have been one of the biggest questions on his reign. He started off as a darling of the West, and then the US official state visit. Kidogo kidogo ako China, akasema yeye na China they'll be the architects of the new world order. Ikazusha kelele upande ile ingine, kidogo huku Sudan RSF, kidogo Juba Land Forces, kidogo Kinshasa wanachoma embassy. Hey, it's been a whirlwind, a roller coaster 3 years.
Trending for the wrong reasons. Kila siku. On the top strip of the People Daily, sovereignty versus security, the genesis of Kenya's friendship with the Jubaland forces. A special coverage there on page 5. And the dirty secrets in Africa's urban salads, another feature on page 3. And that's the People Daily.
Right, from the People Daily we go to the Standard, and they talk about his transportation or his travel to Addis Ababa. So they say lavish Addis flight, but this time round wameachana na ile black background. Yeah, unajua tumekana hiyo black background for a very long time. Hiyo wameacha hapa juu, there's black against the headline of Ruto at 3. We'll be looking at that, but for now, lavish Addis flight. Wasteful, they call it. Had President Ruto chosen to fly to Addis Ababa using Kenya Airways, his round-trip ticket would have cost taxpayers just 179,730 shillings. Even with a delegation of up to 10 aides, the total bill would have remained under 1.8 million shillings. Instead, the president opted once again for a luxurious private jet, the kind typically used by tech billionaires, racking up over 12 million shillings in charter costs for a 4-hour round trip. This comes as the country borrows 3.3 billion shillings daily, and the control of budget raises red flags over rising state house travel expenses. At a time when millions of Kenyans are struggling to put food on the table, such extravagance smacks of tone-deaf wastefulness. Nidai Semo wamepiga picha ile ndege ambayo inasemekana rais ameitumia, na wanasema it has some extra large oval windows to allow a lot of natural light in. It has 3 cabins. And it can accommodate up to 18 people standing space.
Wow.
Kuna ile mahali ya watu kuketi kawaida, kuna ile mahali ya hold meetings, na kuna private space mahali unaweza lala.
Wow.
Yes. Sasa unalala ukitoka hapa Kenya kwenda Addis Ababa.
Yeah.
Dakika ngapi za kulala? So they've actually gone ahead and described in detail on page 8 how this flight is, how the plane looks inside, how much it would cost. But questions are, we know we do have a presidential jet. We do have. So ilikuwa wapi? Hiyo ndo kitu mimi nauliza. Okay, fine. Kama ilikuwa iko garage, unajua hata wewe kama gari iko garage unaenda unachukua ingine. Sasa pengine iko garage.
Yeah.
Lakini you never know. Probably they'll come out and explain. So that's a big story there. They're just looking at his mode of transport to Addis Ababa. You remember the other time he went to the US and we were looking at his mode of transportation. Ile jet walisema it cost 200 million shillings. Alafu akasema hapana, in fact walilipa tu 10 million. Only 10 million. The US and back, a whole plane. Hata mimi naweza taka. Ruto at 3 is another story given prominence. Pale Jew against a black background, Sema, despite styling himself as a champion of hustlers and a defender of democratic freedoms during his presidential campaigns, 3 years on, Kenya's civic space tells a different story. Human rights actors say freedom of expression has suffered its sharpest decline since the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution. And this story on pages 4 and 5 does a comparison of 3 presidents. Mwai Kibaki, and that was before the new Constitution, and the protests that were experienced then and how police reacted to them, how Uhuru Kenyatta did the same, because there are quite a number of protests during Uhuru Kenyatta's reign as well, how he dealt with them, and now what Ruto has done. Story on page 4 and 5. Kule nyuma, munakumbuka leo kuna mpira. Harambee Stars leo wanafaa kukutana. Kenya will host Seychelles today at the Kasarani in a dead rubber 2026 World Cup qualifier, with both teams already out of the race for a ticket to the USA, Mexico, Canada showpiece. So this is purely for bragging rights. Because we hakuna mahali tunaenda, tumemaliza safari. Safari iliisha ya qualifiers because we are bottom of the group. Kenya and Seychelles are already bottom of the group.
Kuna wale washa qualify.
Sasa imagine wakituchapa leo. It's bragging rights today. Tuko kwetu, hata kama tuko chini sisi wote, lazima tuwachape. Yani tu ni lazima. Tukikosa, kesho hata tukuje kazi. Practice will make perfect. One step at a time.
Tickets
Benny McCarthy anasema.
for 500 Kenya.
Unaona hapo, Ivory Coast wako na 19 points kwa hiyo group. Gabon, who beat us the other, they have 18. Burundi, they have 10. Mbona wamerudia Gabon mara mbili? Kenya 6 points, and then Seychelles, the very last team, with 0 points. Ndio tunakutana nao leo. Hata tukiwachapa hapa kama Maringo tuko nayo. Yeah, that's the story on the back page. And that's
I think the 4th Gabon is Gambia.
Gambia ndio walitutandika juzi.
Yes. All right, that's the standard. Taifa Leo, majopo ya kutafuna. Tangu Septemba mwaka 2022, Ruto amebuni zaidi ya kamati 10 ila matunda yake hayajaonekana. Wajibikaji sawa tu na ripoti za majopo ya tangu jadi nchini Kenya, ripoti za kamati za Ruto huenda zikiozea kwenye makabati ya afisi za serikali, ilhali pesa nyingi za raia zilitumika kuzibuni na kuziendesha. Baadhi ya kamati za rais ni jopo la fidia kwa waathiriwa wa dhuluma. That is the latest one. Protest victims. Nyingine ni jopo kazi la kukabiliana na ufisadi, jopo kazi la kuchunguza deni la umma la Kenya, jopo la kuchunguza mwongozo wa kisheria na kimamlaka wa makundi ya kidini, jopo kazi la mazungumzo ya kitaifa maarufu kama NADCO, jopo la mageuzi katika huduma ya polisi na magereza, na vilevile jopo la elimu ya msingi, hiyo ni CBC, na vyuo vya kadri na vyuo vikuu.
Najua, it reminds me during Moi's time. In fact, people are always joking that in any case, in any issue that comes up, the president will say, I have formed a commission of inquiry. And there were so many commissions of inquiry formed then that were never consequential. No one even bothered with the results. So sasa hapa ni task forces. Yeah, we form a task force to investigate another task force, so that the new task force can come up with a new one.
Learning from the best.
Yes.
You see, pesa zilizohitajika ili kuwezesha shughuli za jopo la mazungumzo ya kitaifa, hiyo ni NADCO, kila mwenyekiti alipokea shilingi 1,100 kwa kila kikao. Total was 106 million Kenya shillings. Yes. Vidokezo zaidi, mkakati wa upinzani kura Malava yabainika, mashauriano ya kuwaondoa baadhi ya wawaniaji yanaendelea. Koti yapiga breki jopo la fidia. Jopo la kuwafidia wahanga wa dhulma za serikali chini ya makao Mutua kusubiri kwa muda zaidi. Na njaa county, wafanyakazi wakikosa ujira miezi. On the top strip, sababu za Waislamu kusali mwezi unapopatwa. Ni habari nyingine katika ukurasa wa 5 wa gazeti hili, na masala ya spoti pale, mbivu na mbichi ya Afrika mbio za kombe la dunia. Gazeti la Taifa Leo.
From that to crossover to matters business. So jamaa PNG wanatuchanganya siku hizi lakini sawa tu. Kenya Power hit as rural homes spend 7 shillings 20 cents daily. They say most households used power for charging phones and lighting. FDB proposes startup capital to boost consumption. People are not consuming electricity. That's simply what they're saying. Kenya Power's rural customers connected to the national grid under the last mile connectivity project are spending a paltry 7 shillings 20 cents daily on electricity, delaying economic benefits from the billions of shillings spent on connections. Meaning that people are just not using electricity. Wanatumia tu kucharge simu. Yeah. The average monthly electricity consumption of rural households is 11.44 kilowatt hours, which is currently valued at 217 shillings per month. Wow.
Nini solar?
Hawana gadgets. They don't have need for electricity apart from mobile phones, which they have no choice but to charge. You know, it's only mobile phones that you can't charge ukitumia hizi batteries zingine itachapa. The majority of households use electricity for charging phones and lighting, unlike plugging in gadgets like fridges, TVs, cookers, microwaves, and electric heaters, which are key drivers of power. So kule mashinani, maeneo ya rural areas, hawana those gadgets. They're just using electricity for lighting and charging phones. Na wanasema ni kama Kenya Power haipati pesa. Yes. All right. Matters banking. Depositors in top banks lose 22 billion shillings in 6 months as rates dip. Depositors hawapati pesa.
Ndio director amesema ati mashinani watu hawahitaji pasi. Unalalia tu chini, unalalia shati yako.
Unajua siku zake walikuwa ushaona wale jamaa amevaa shati iko na mabox hivi huko nyuma hivi, box cars 6 hivi. Na hajapiga pasi, ameweka tu chini ya mattress. Namjua sana wewe. Wa Vihiga. On the ticker up, some depositors in failed banks may draw up to 1 million shillings compensation. So depositors who lose money in failed banks may soon draw up to 1 million shillings in compensation according to recommendations of a new study. And finally, NSC posts third highest dollar returns in Africa. Matters business on the front page of the Business Daily.
All right. Tukisonga mbele, Daily Nation, 1 million state workers gobble up half of taxes. Violation, government agencies and counties routinely break statutory ceilings on pay. And trends of public wage bill and ordinary revenue in millions has been covered here on the front page of this newspaper. They say a hiring spree to meet the demand for more teachers, medics and security officers has pushed the number of government employees past 1 million. The bloated workforce is consuming nearly half of annual tax revenues, with the runaway wage bill leaving little for development.
You remember last year around April, May, there was a conference at the Bomas of Kenya where they were discussing the wage bill.
Yes.
And the president was there and was very vocal. This was way before the Gen Z issues around the budgets. They said this wage bill has to go down, and making a commitment, it has to go down to 35% of the entire revenue collected.
Yes.
Wapi? Sasa tumefika bado tuko kule juu 48%.
Na SRC walikuwa hapo chairing that meeting.
It was actually their conference.
Yes. Okay. Other stories here on the top strip. County employees go without salaries. That story is on page 7. Ruto invites hundreds of tutors to State House for talks on CBE. And on page 10, it talks about orders put on ice. E-procurement protest victims team.
And that's a big one.
It is.
3 years down the line, a lot of policies and moves by this administration continue to face legal hurdles in court. The latest one, that jopo kazi ambaye kuwafidia victims of abductions and protests, and then the e-procurement. But these are conservatory orders, because many people have challenged them in court. These are just conservatory orders, especially the one for e-procurement. They've said it will cease. That order will be lifted by October 15th.
Lakini Mbadi alisema wale ambao mna reject it, stop it. Stop it. You have to accept the e-procurement
Sasa koti imesema akuje slow. Wash, how Juba dirty cash is laundered in Kenya. This is the front page of the Star. Today being a Tuesday, you get a free copy of this. Country's riches monetized, concealed and rerouted into global markets. So a UN panel of experts found South Sudan soldiers are key players in illicit charcoal trade. The report also finds South Sudan's gold is virtually unregulated, mined, traded, then smuggled across the border to Kenya and Uganda. Hii utajisomea mwenye pages 4 and 5 of the Star today. Other stories, pale juu, the top strip, baptism by fire, Ruto administration at 3, presidency forged in fire. Do you really think it was baptism by fire? He was deputy president for a whole 5 years. He understood these things. I think he was actually the fire. He understood the job better than anyone else.
Yes.
Pale chini, fee cuts, universities and government face testing times. Petty theft, chicken thief, jailed for 7 years, gets a retrial.
Kuku.
Jamaa anaiba pesa mamilioni anafungwa mwaka moja ama mwaka moja unusu. Jamaa anaiba kuku anafungwa miaka 7.
Wow.
Inaitwa justice. And fighting misconduct, IPOA in fresh push for police body cameras. That's a start. Today being a Tuesday, it's not for sale and it comes with a complimentary MyGov pull-out for government jobs and tenders. Grab yourself a copy of this paper. Fresh, independent, different.
All right. Now let's take a look at the tumemaliza. You know, we're used to the business daily being the last.
Lakini ule jamaa wa PNG anapenda kuiweka pande nyingine.
All right, angalia caricature. This is the Standard.
No, this is the People Daily.
It's People Daily. Stano ni wa People Daily?
Yes, Stano ni wa People Daily.
Okay. Jubilee, Matiang'i is holding the key here, caricatured here, holding the key here, Jubilee to 2027 polls.
Ni kama atapewa usukani aambiwe sasa chama ni yako. Unajua chama ina wenyewe?
Chama ina wenyewe.
Sasa ni kama atakuwa mwenyewe wa chama.
Na the last time we were looking at Jubilee, we saw they were trying to...
Ownership ya hii chama imeleta kizungumkuti sana for the past 1 year or so. Matters the Star. Like a cartoon on the Star, we have someone here, a caricature of the president, trying to paint the map of Kenya, which has a flag as its colors, but anajaribu kuipaka rangi ndio ikue Singapore. Alisema anataka kugeuza hii nchi kwa kama Singapore.
Wanasema housing
sisi wa Kenya wanaambia sisi tunataka tu Kenya, sisi hatutaki Singapore. We just want Kenya. But alisema anataka kuifanya kwa Singapore.
All right. This is Daily Nation?
Yes, this is the Daily Nation.
All right. There are some faith, quote unquote, issues. There are some faith issues.
I like their play of words there. Faith.
Lakini faith has had it. Last week and this week, this caricature is talking about the compensation panel were protest victims led by Makao Mutua. Lakini say there are some faith issues.
I think wanazungumzia the fact that the courts have issued conservatory orders on the operations of that compensation panel for now, before that case is heard and determined. Because according to this cartoonist, they're sweeping a lot of things under the carpet. Yeah? Kuna maswali mengi. Wale basi kama unasema mna compensate, meaning that there was wrongdoing. Wale wenye waliwaua, je, umewafikisha kotini? Ama tu tunalipa watu alafu tusahau watu waliuawa namna gani?
But I think compensation is not only about the pay. There's so much to be talked about anyway.
Clearly there are some faith issues. Finally, the Standard. 2 frames here.
2022 and 2025. One person, President William Ruto. Holy Bible, commentator anasema pale.
Niliweka Biblia chini. You know, before he actually took oath of office on 13th of September 2022, which will be exactly 3 years this Saturday. So akachukua Biblia na akaweka juu akasema, lakini sasa watu wanamuuliza maswali yanasema pana niliweka Biblia chini. Biblia iko pale chini sasa 2025.
All right. So the story is making headlines this morning.
And our panel this morning, starting at 6:30, James Gakuya, MP, Embakasi North, Wakili Harrison Kenyanjui, and governance analyst Fwamba NC Fwamba, taking a look at the big headlines today. Do stand by for that, coming your way in a short while.
Being a Tuesday, we talk matters biashara. Patrick Muraguri will be here again. We talk about matters SMEs and digital tools, how they can maximize on the digital platforms.
Yes,
28 minutes, yes, past 6. Tuangalie kama sana sana the, what was it? Survey area.
Yes, and you can see whatever we had predicted ni kama tumekuwa tunaitwa nini? Prophets of doom. Because we saw a problem at Pangani Interchange this morning. It was already read a bit too earlier than usual. So tukajua hapa kutakuwa na shida. And sasa hii ukiangalia, yes, that traffic has gone as far back as the KCA University. So if you're using Thika Road, ukifika KCA University hapo ndo unasimama, because it's chock-a-block all the way to the Pangani Interchange where you meet up with the guys coming from Kiambu Road, na hapo itakuwa shida. So guys coming from Thika Road, do expect slowed traffic, especially after KCA University. But kule juu, all the way from Ruiru Road, there's nothing to report upande hiyo. I want to see kama Kiambu Road kulikuwa na ile shida hapa 4 ways, na ni kama okay fine. Ni kama wamefungua, kuna shida, it was somewhere here. So not, hiyo kama tulikuwa predict, probably we were wrong. Jogoo Road building up nicely, areas around Makadara, all the way to that roundabout here, St. Stephen's Jogoo Road. It's looking red at this time. Further, Tasia Pipeline is also building up quite nicely on Outer Ring Road. And I can see, wale watu wa Utawala, ukishafika pale KQ roundabout, it's also slowing down as you get closer to that interchange with Outer Ring Road, and even as you get closer to Mombasa Road. Naona upande ingine kuna shida. Heading towards the airport, there's a long stretch of red. Now this is going away from town. From Cabanas all the way to that entry to the airport, it's red. Hapo kama hujapanda expressway na uko na flight at 7, hiyo imekuacha. Gari ni kama imeenda. Ndege ishaondoka. Other areas that I can see traffic, Kangundo Road building up nicely. Other than that, everything else is okay.
All right. Meanwhile, do interact with us on our socials. You're already seeing your feedback happen on social media on X. If you're watching us, asante sana. Let's start with X a little bit. Francis Okanga anasema, good morning team Morning Cafe. I find this show being the best show ever to wake up to on a daily basis. Keep it ndani hadi tamati. Asante sana Frank for watching. Tukivuka pale Facebook kidogo, or we're still on Twitter. I've seen Gladstone is here. Good morning, Kenya. It's always very important to wake up to some motivating news and insights. Let's do this. Asante sana Gladstone for watching.
Mwingine anaitwa Abubakar Mululu on Facebook. Anasema, good morning Fred and Ann. Good morning Abubakar. Anasema yeye, I'm always the only Gen Z mwenye ana tune in cafe from Machakos. Well, asante sana Abubakar Mululu. Keep tuning into Morning Cafe. Ngugi wa Morisho mwenyewe anasema watching from Morisho, Ndaragwa.
Siayan Danish Mindola anasema watching live from Siaya County. Asante sana for waking up with us. Tunajua mnarauka sana. Simon Munene anasema good morning. Good morning kabisa. Ezra Tebla anasema good morning Makukuni ndani. And finally Cecilia Aguero anasema good morning from Konele.
Aguero.
Aguero, do you know what Aguero means?
No, Aguero is a player.
No, I'm telling you what Aguero means. Aguero is a Luo word,
okay.
Meaning to scratch something, to scratch someone. So yeye kazi yake ni kuscratch. Kama venye paka
Aguero,
inagwara mtu. Aguero.
Okay.
All right, interact with us on our social media platform, TV47 Kenya, on Facebook and on YouTube, on X at TV47 Digital. My handle on X is at @Ann_Dina. The hashtag is Morning Cafe.
My handle on X is at Fred Indimuli. See you after the break.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth, as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget, regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50, going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation.
Welcome back and good morning once again. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indimuli. This is a time when we take a look at the big headlines. State of the nation it is. This morning we're privileged to have, allow me to introduce my panelists, James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North. Karibu sana Bwana Gakuya, it's good to have you in studio. And Fwamba, NC Fwamba, as a governance analyst. Karibu sana. I still don't understand what the NC stands for. I keep...
NC is NC.
NC.
Like Fwamba, NC Fwamba.
Fwamba, NC Fwamba. NC, does it stand for anything in particular, or it's just NC? I'll know. All right. Fwamba, NC Fwamba. Wakili Harrison Kinyanjui will be joining us in a short while for this conversation. Now, this week on Saturday, we'll be marking exactly 3 years since President William Ruto took oath of office to become the 5th president of this republic. And this week, we continue examining the 3 years of his presidency. Many questions have been asked about issues around diplomacy of this administration. It is what features on the front page of the People Daily, hits and misses of President William Ruto's diplomatic forays. The Daily Nation has a story on page 8 looking at the number of task forces that the president has also formed in the last 3 years. It is the main story on the front page of Taifa Leo, where they're talking about how these task forces have eaten and gobbled up a lot of money, including the NADCO team that spent about 106 million shillings and came up with a report that is yet to be implemented. So, page 8, Ruto's endless task forces stir political and legal upheaval. Since taking office on September 13th, 2022, the president has set up more than 10 task forces, dividing public opinion. President William Ruto is once again facing scrutiny over his reliance on task forces and committees to address national issues, with the latest team focusing on compensation of victims of protest-related police brutality. Since taking office on September 2023, the president has set up more than 10 task forces, a record that has divided opinion. The very first task force was on the education reforms, whose report is gathering dust somewhere in a shelf in State House. Bwana, this reminds us of President Daniel Moi, who was always very fast to form commissions of inquiry to investigate issues of national concern. But many of those teams or reports were never made public, and they were rarely consequential. 10 task forces in 3 years, is it a bit too much for President William Ruto?
Thank you, Edimoni. Allow me to salute viewers wherever they are watching this morning show from, and coming to the matters concerned on the reports that were never enforced. It is true that various governments rushed to make inquiries, but after those inquiries or those commissions, after being commissions and reports were presented, to enforce or to implement those reports becomes a handle. And I would like to cite that this is a pure weakness of the executive, because anything to enforce or to implement is under the powers of the executive. Note that, in fact, even as much as the parliament has a duty to make many recommendations, those recommendations, after exiting from the house, the implementers or the enforcers are the executive. This still goes to judiciary, that even though judiciary make judgments, those judgments, if the court makes a direction, that direction implementer is not the court, but the enforcer or implementer of such decisions made by court is still the executive. But executive sometimes tends to override and put under the lock those kind of reports or orders issued by court and ignore. And I would say this is a big weakness, because there's no need of using public taxpayers' money, and after using that taxpayers' money, then you fail to implement the report. Then it shows no justification to why, in the first place, did you took that direction. You waste public money, and after using that public money, you do not want to implement the report. Either you could say the report has issues, and then if you have issues with the report, then ask for a further investigation if you are not satisfied with the report tabled on you. But you cannot receive reports and put reports under the locker and fail to implement. Even some reports, public does not know what was the report. Yes, it becomes executive property. It is wrong, and I will castigate and say it is wrong to misuse public or taxpayers' money just to report that executive has no business with. And there is no need in the first place to institute such kind of commissions if on the onset you are not ready to implement such a report. But I would say it is a total misbehavior of the executive.
But it does serve a purpose, definitely, Bwana Famba. The fact that probably any administration, and it's not just William Ruto's administration, they found a way of pacifying the masses in case of a crisis of national concern, that whenever many questions are asked, the First thing is to tell them, okay, fine, I formed a team to look into this. And then the masses are pacified and we forget about it and move on. Is this the same route that the President William Ruto is using in forming all these 10 task forces in 3 years?
I want to agree that at some point in the past, task forces have been used for political reasons. But again, as you have just underlined, it is factual that this is not the first regime that is having task forces. By the time we are trying to scrutinize what is happening currently, we need to also look at the past. We cannot just condemn this government as if it's the first one to put up task forces. But again, since President Ruto came into power, the biggest challenge has been the litigious nature of Kenyans. You look at like Dr. Gikenyi, who is my friend, or the surgeon from Nakuru. It's like he has taken over from Omtata and is always in court, petitioning the court to challenge any government decision. And that has given a lot of bottlenecks in terms of executing certain government priorities. And task forces are not exceptional. I want to believe that the 3 years that the president has been in power is such a short time compared to the 60 years that were under the other leaderships previously. But I'm seeing a situation whereby there's very strong high judgment against the current regime as opposed to the 60 years.
10 task forces in 3 years.
In context of what we are discussing, every task force has its own role. So you cannot necessarily say that there are 10, there are 20, there are what. Every task force is put there on need basis. For example, if you look at the Macau Mutua one, it is something that the Kenyans are experiencing for the first time. There are so many people who have been killed under extrajudicial circumstances, and they have not been mentioned in terms of compensation. Like in 2009, on 5th of March, a friend of mine called GPO, who was a student leader at the University of Nairobi, was assassinated alongside Oscar Kingara and another student. But that never got any kind of attention from the state. So for me, I think we should be applauding the president for coming up with these decisions that are helping to address some of the issues that have never been addressed by previous regimes.
Okay. Wakili Harrison Kinyanjui, karibu sana.
Thank you very
this
much.
conversation, and we're just looking at the 3 years of President William Ruto. Now, the angle that the Daily Nation has chosen to go with is a number of task forces that have been formed to investigate or look into a number of issues that have come up of national concern. Some of them, and I'll read them in Swahili because they're there on the front page of the Taifa Leo. Jopo la elimu ya msingi, that's a task force on education reforms. Jopo la mageuzi katika huduma ya polisi, that's a CJ Maraga-led police reforms task force. Jopo kazi la mazungumzo ya kitaifa maarufu kama NADCO, kuchunguza mwongozo wa kisheria wa kimamlaka na makundi ya kidini, religious organizations. Jopo kazi la kuchunguza deni la umma, debt being a very big discussion in Kenya. Jopo kazi la kukabiliana na ufisadi, that's the one formed, bringing together all these organizations only last month, and the latest one on the compensation of victims of police abductions and killings. Now, all these spend money, yet we rarely get to see any consequence coming from the report generated by these teams, and one wonders, what is the use of such bodies or such teams that end up spending, like for example, NADCO spent about 106 million shillings. Yet we forgot about it. Now we are going with the MOU for the broad-based arrangement. Do you see the need for these task forces, or are they simply routes to pacify the masses and we move on?
Thank you very much. Good morning to my panelists, friends. It's terrible. This is a deflection from the inefficiencies that accosted him when he suddenly realized my end game was to be in power, and now I am accosted by a failed economy coming from the COVID-19 scenario. And instead of him saying that, look, we have a crisis, we have just come from this internationally orchestrated economic scenario called COVID-19. Pandemic, as they called it. And we therefore need to align our policies and everything else to come out of that economic doldrum. Did he? He came into power and started to flex his political muscle. 3 years down the line, what do we see? Him getting on rooftop of cars, campaigning and all of that. Do you need a task force to tell you that there is a problem in the education sector? We do not have, for instance, under Section 68 of the Basic Education Act, the quality analysis force. That committee is not there. So what do we have? A fall in quality education. But we do have the mechanism in law. As Meshimo has said, yes, you can have the decision of a court made and decided, but in the end, it is executive to implement that decision. These task forces that he makes, you wonder who is his legal advisor. His legal advisor is supposed to be under Article 157 of the Constitution, the Honorable the Attorney General. The Honorable the Attorney General is either sleeping on her job or his job, as it were, or the President has been thoroughly and absolutely ignoring any and all advice. And I take the latter view with tremendous respect. Why do I say that? If you see what the Constitution provides for in terms of the powers, the scope, and the role of the NPSC, the National Police Service Commission, could and would ever the Chief Justice Emeritus, Honorable Maraga, then sit on that task force as he did? The High Court, the Constitutional Court, eventually said that, look, you didn't have that mandate. It is unconstitutional for you to have undertaken and executed that. That's money down the drain. Then you ask yourself, okay, the Public Service Commission has all this data about the experts that are hired by the government, either on consultancy basis or within the departments of government themselves. Can't they fall back on that reservoir of intelligence or expertise that we have? Is that a prudent use of our public resources, that you have a task force to investigate the Shakahola incident and so on and so forth? Those are crimes. Where was the DCI to begin with? Where were the police to begin with? We do not need a task force. For instance, then he comes and creates this task force for the compensation of victims of crime. And we all know that he said and told the policeman, you remove your gun and shoot that person in the foot if you do find them. Come on, he is a perpetrator of crime himself. And then he sets up this task force. What am I saying? He's setting up these task forces to hoodwink the Kenyan people and to deflect from his inefficiencies. And also to try and justify that the government is doing something, quote unquote, something about the scenario. Take, for instance, this task force that he set up to look into the exodus of corporations and companies from this country. Why are they divesting? They are divesting because of the harsh economic environment. The climate that he has created, his government has created, is so anti-economic progress. You cannot invest in this sort of environment and hope to sustain your business. And then he sets up a task force. At the end of it all, does he change the policies? You find the Finance Act and every other policy that he has engaged in is to decimate business. The average person would rather even close or trim down, downsize their economic enterprises rather than invest. Isn't that a pointer that he should have? Lastly, does he need a task force to see, to know that those policies he has engaged himself are in fact the resultant of what is happening? Does his son need to get into the PSV business? Is that where we should be? And remarkably, his own government tells us, oh, you should get into the electric vehicles. His son does not invest in the EV buses himself. So we see these dysfunctional policies that he has and he's imposing on the Kenyan people. And when it comes to the practical implementation, he is so far removed from it.
Okay. And probably before I give Bwanagakuya an opportunity for that, so that you respond to that, Bwanafamba, then it defeats that comparison that we had between previous presidents and him, that previous presidents may have found it necessary to form such teams because of the constitutional dispensation back then, President Moi Kibaki. But right now, this constitution provides for other bodies, independent institutions, that would be doing the same work. For example, the task force on corruption. It's simply bringing together the same teams that are supposed to be fighting corruption. Don't you think that this is a repetition of duties?
First, I think Wakili has taken a political trajectory. She's mentioning about the president going up to the family members, talking about the son's business.
No. What I was saying,
That's purely
what I was saying, it's not political. It's not political. I'm saying.
And now back to the task force. Let me answer.
Allow me to clarify that, because you see, if you bring a policy and you tell us the policy that the government should be taking, and we saw him driving this EV vehicle and saying that it is time now we shifted from the so-called fossil fuels and we came to electric vehicles. We should see the exempling.
Right.
That's what I was saying, and I'm not getting personal.
Now let me get back to the response. You see, if you want to address a problem, you have to get to the bottom of it. And there are specific situations whereby there is a need for presidential intervention. And those circumstances are the ones that have dictated the formation of these task forces. For example, you saw the NADCO team was established after the Azimio versus Kenya Kwanza crisis. And as a country, because we love politics so much, we are moving from one crisis to the next. And you cannot just sit there and wait for things to happen by themselves. You work in such a manner that you are supposed to address anything that emerges. Not necessarily in a rigid manner, that the law is provided this way so that you live strictly without necessarily thinking outside the box. You must live within the context of the law, but also live within the practicability of the situation. And that's what the president has been doing. Because apart from holding the position, you are entrusted with the right skills to manage the country towards the right direction.
Even when it comes to duplication of roles, because some of these task forces are simply repeating what other bodies
in my opinion, is working in a collaborative manner. You know, every institution has its own strengths. So by the time you are trying to put together different institutions, you are trying to empower the task force so that they produce the best results on the basis of information from different quarters of the society.
All right.
That's the same way you'll appoint different people from different professions to handle a task force so that they put their expertise in practice and in the final report.
But probably this is why we're experiencing a lot of legal hurdles towards these task forces, that there simply is a lot of duplication of roles. The task forces are being given jobs whose basis or whose primary focus should be coming from different organizations that are provided for in the Constitution. Do you think that this is the best way that we could use our money?
Idimuri, system is always a system because it works. But if it does not work, it's a failed system. How can you commission a task force where already you have a commission existing and which is a commission anchored in the Constitution? That is duplicating its job. Otherwise, you should disband that commission first before you put another task force, because it tells that whatever that commission is doing, it is not fulfilling. And if it's not fulfilling, then address how to terminate that commission so that then you can move out and bring in task forces. Otherwise, that is taxpayers' money gone to waste in terms of duplication, because that commission is paid for. This task force will be paid for, and that is a pure duplication. And what I would just to say is that what the executives most of the time want to do is to hoodwink, because they mess the country knowingly, but they just want to hide their face. And therefore they create task forces just to confuse people, just to create, to bring a perception that actually they are taking care or they are taking mercy to whatever has transpired. How? And I want to cite that case of extrajudicial killing. The president is in the record telling Kenyans that he is aware those men and women who has been abducted has already gone back to their families. That tells you he is aware where they were and how they were arrested. Therefore, it tells you even those who are executed, he is aware. And if you are aware as a president, then you want to come to tell us that you form a commission on how to compensate. How do you, that is making people foolish. And that is trying just to clear your face, where you are the cause and source of the problem.
Right.
How can you be in the record telling people, your minister telling people that shoot anybody who comes near the police station? And then you wake up as a president, tell Kenyans, shoot anybody who is in protest or who is on a particular angle, shoot in the leg. and then we want to compensate after shooting.
Fred, I have a very disturbing issue. I have a very disturbing issue. Now, when you look at some of those commissions, 3 of which have been declared unconstitutional, the Maraga one, the one for the Health Act, and this latter one that has been declared unconstitutional. The question that I ask myself is, where is the cut-off point of accountability? Because if you have apportioned all this money and the commission or the task force has been declared unconstitutional by the court, do they refund the money? Mm-hmm. Those reports are now redundant, useless pieces of verdicts. Where are we as a people? Because at the end of it all, which is why I was asking in the first place, where is the Honorable Attorney General to say to the President, excuse me, before you embark on this enterprise, misadventure, I should say, this is wholly unconstitutional. This is illegal. You will be now sinking into an arena where you're going to drown. Please don't go there. And then he goes there. And then we, the taxpayers, suffered this expense. The question is now, what I am asking myself is, this money that has been expended on these task forces, and that are declared unconstitutional, by means of which then you cannot rely on their reports, but we are being told, oh, the Maraga report is being implemented. That is a thorn in the flesh in our nation.
Gazeti la Taifa Leo nasema ni majopo ya kutafuna. The number of task forces created by President William Ruto, 10 of them since he came into office on 13th of September 2022. We continue looking at Ruto at 3 years of President William Ruto. He was sworn in on the 13th of September 2022 and will be marking exactly 3 years this Saturday. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll focus more on one of the latest task forces. That's the one intended to compensate victims of abductions and police brutality, and the kind of legal issues that it has experienced. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indimuli. We continue discussing issues surrounding the 3 years of President William Ruto's reign as president. Ruto has suffered a double blow in court. That's a headline on page 10 of the Daily Nation. Ruto suffers double court blow on e-procurement and protest payouts. President William Ruto yesterday suffered a double blow after the High Court halted the implementation of two recent decrees he had touted as solutions to corruption and grievances of victims of violent protests. Yes, definitely. And this ties into the kind of discussion we were having just after the break. Let's watch the story about compensation of victims, and now that the panel has been halted by these conservatory orders by the courts.
The High Court in Kerugoya has issued conservatory orders temporarily halting the implementation of President William Ruto's directive, establishing a framework for compensation of victims of demonstrations and public protests.
I, Faith Odhiambo Moni, having been appointed as the Vice Chairperson of the panel of experts on compensation of victims of demonstrations and public protests.
This comes just 4 days after the swearing in of the panel of experts on compensation of victims of demonstrations and public protests. Justice Kizito Magari certified the application dated September 5th, 2025 as urgent and directed that it be heard inter partes. Justice Kizito Magari's order reads, pending the hearing, the court stayed the commencement of the mandate of panel of experts on compensation of victims of demonstrations and public protests and suspended the implementation of Gazette Notice of August 25th, 2025, which had appointed the panel to establish a repatriation framework. Justice Magare also ordered that the respondents and interested parties file their responses within 7 days of service. The applicant will have 3 days to file submissions, but not later than September the 24th. Respondents and interested parties are required to file submissions within 3 days thereafter, and in any case, not later than September 30th. The court further restrained the respondents, their servants, agents, or assigns from enforcing or acting upon the presidential proclamation of August 6, 2025, until the application is heard. The matter will be mentioned for directions on October 6, 2025, before the High Court in Kerugoya. On the same note, a PLP party leader Martha Karua has called for justice for protest victims before the government makes efforts to undertake their compensation.
A compensation team before issues of giving victims justice, because there cannot be peace without justice. We want prosecution of the culprits. We want a commitment that never again shall the guns and the whatever equipment the taxpayer has bought for our defense be used to murder, maim, and injure.
The 18-member panel appointed by President William Ruto had begun assessing claims by the affected families. The panel held its inaugural meeting on Monday. Linda Alela, TV 47.
All right, and that's what we want to discuss now. But before that, just a look at social media, and I can see quite some response on what we were discussing just before the break. Let me just take a look at one. Francis Okanga says, setup of task forces is a sign of a listening call by the president, but it seems a waste of resources since no task force reports have been implemented. Some even doubt them since they seem as tactical moves to cool Kenyans whenever something arises. Now, if we may focus on this issue about the protest payouts, the matter is before court and we cannot discuss the merits or demerits of the same. But there are issues that have arisen, Wakili Kinyanjui. And this is about the involvement of the LSK chairperson, of the LSK president in such a discussion. I'd want to know your stand on the matter. And do you think that there's been an unfair criticism on the LSK president just because she accepted to sit in that panel?
Thank you very much. I have tremendous respect for Faith, our president, in the Law Society. But I don't think the criticism has been unfair in the least. And what I didn't like personally was the media council's trajectory. Going on to say that, you know, there are all these media reports on, social media reports about her appointment. Taking up the appointment was attacked by the Kenyan people. So let's respect that space, the digital space to express an opinion which in itself is not injurious to a person's character. That should be allowed. However, ordinarily, when opportunities arise for members of the Law Society or even the Law Society to take up, like in the boards or appointments that the government has, where a member of the Law Society is required, they circulate like a memo to all of us through email. And we have recommendations to make, or we're invited, well, would you be interested in it? And therefore you can apply. In this instance, it was just an appointment by the president. And then she took it up, and then the conflict of interest that arises is naked. I mean, you can all see how. The president of the Law Society, so long as she is in that task force, then, of course, she is silenced. Whatever voice that she may have in terms of dissent is muffled, if not altogether removed. So her objectivity then becomes totally lost in all of that. Section 4 of the Advocates Act allows the Law Society to advise the government. So if I were her friend, or if I was given the opportunity before she took up that particular appointment, I would have told her, please reserve your objective position as the president of the Law Society. Now, when she then took it up, we, the lawyers, did not have the opportunity to tell her that, look, Madam President, with all due respect, you should have asked us what the ramifications would be for your taking up this appointment. I would have gladly told you, whereas, and this is with tremendous respect to her, whereas at face value, there doesn't seem to be any conflict with you taking it up at that personal level, but at the professional level, really, faced with a government that is so stark, determined to stifle the rights of the Kenyan people, and here you have the Law Society supposed to be advocating for those rights, and supposed to be actually agitating for the rights of the victims, you would be in a conflicted space in the public opinion. Now, that's very important.
But Wakili, some may argue that even this panel needs some balanced voices, some voices from the other side. She's not the only person appointed to this panel. Transparency International Executive Director, Irungu Houghton, is one of those. And one wonders, how come there's no such criticism towards Irungu accepting that appointment? Does it mean that the LSK has to be, to a huge extent, anti-government or express anti-government sentiments?
No, not at all. I think the dichotomy, the distinction that has to be made between Irungu having or being in the civil society and the LSK's president is that the LSK, the Law Society of Kenya, is a statutory body. There is such a body enacted by law. The Advocates Act is the legislation that governs that. Whereas now for Mr. Irungu, for him, he's in the civil society. So whatever choices that he made, or whatever decision that he made, or whatever informed his take up of that decision, I do not know. Probably his own organization said there was a resolution and there was an acceptance. But for us in the Law Society, it's different. Now, to answer your question quickly so that I can give the platform to my colleagues, it is not always that the Law Society, quote unquote, is belligerent, fighting the government, always in the opposition. No, what the Law Society is actually advancing, advocating, is the respect for the human rights and the political space that Kenyans ought to be afforded in the face of, should I say, a tyrannical, a dictatorial leadership. That voice should not be seen as dissent, belligerent, or in opposition. You have to state the truth as it is. White is white, whichever way you look at it. White can never be black. But you want to have a government that it comes and places something right there and wants you to believe, wants you to take it, and wants you to stand with it on that. And you say, no, I do not agree or accept. The fact, expressing a fact does not mean that you are belligerent, you're fighting the government.
The people who now see the LSK president as a betrayer.
Before I get to the LSK issue, it is so sad to see politicians who served in previous governments coming out and opposing this compensation plan. Because the best thing they should have done was to come out and say that even the atrocities that happened when they were in government should also be addressed, so that they also have something to say about it, because they were in government and they knew what used to happen. Like I've seen Honorable Martha Karua was a Minister for Justice at some point in this country. And even at that time, there were so many atrocities that happened. So instead of them opposing compensation for the victims of the current situation, they should have now come out to state what exactly happened during that time and address this matter as well. Now, on the issue of LSK and the involvement in this task force, you see, the president was looking at different stakeholders, people who have a say in certain fields as far as this issue is concerned. And all of us were around and saw the kind of role Faith played as an institution of LSK and also as an individual. The role she played in condemning the abductions and the extrajudicial killings during the Gen Z demonstrations. So she is there, in my opinion, as a representative of the victims more than any other person. And therefore, those people who are not afflicted should not use politics to fight this task force. For example, there are so many stakeholders, and the main stakeholders and major stakeholders in this situation are the families that were afflicted. So those ones have not had an opportunity to be heard. And I thought, or I believe, that this task force was supposed to be the best platform for the families that are afflicted to be heard and then be compensated in a public manner, as opposed to what happened in the past. We know of the Rivayala victims. Those were also families. No one has talked about them during the last regime. There are so many people who were killed during Kibaki's time. No one has talked about them, and the families have not been addressed in any manner. I keep on mentioning about Olu GPO because he was a close friend of mine. And when we went to their home, his parents suffered up to the last time of their breath. We put together a team of friends to keep on supporting the family up to the time the parents passed away. So, in my opinion, the best thing was for these critics to come out and also tell us what they did during that time and tell us how better it's supposed to be done, if at all they are against whatever is being proposed by the president.
Bwana, it would appear there are some who feel that this criticism against anything government is also misguided. That just because you do not support William Ruto does not necessarily mean that you criticize and oppose every single move that he makes as president of this republic, because he still remains president until someone else takes oath of office. Do you agree that probably we are becoming a bit too critical?
Demori, let me on the set be very clear that it will be long if we are going to allow any sitting state to do wrongdoings and then use taxpayers' money to compensate people. Do you want to tell me that, in fact, we can allow police to have that kind of brutality, killing people, innocent people, just haphazardly, and then a full minister who carries that docket comes out and telling the same or ordering the same police to kill, shoot to kill anybody, any youth who comes near a police station. And then you want to tell us, so that you want to suit and cover whatever evil you have done, you are going to reselect the bodies that are dead by compensating the family. That's not a justification at all. And if really any sitting government will just do any evil so that it can compensate families,
shouldn't therefore the demand therefore be a demand for justice and not just a condemnation of any possible compensation? Is compensation in itself negative?
Personally, I am not saying compensation is negative. Compensation is cooling the hearts of those affected families. But that's not enough. Why in the first place do we take charge to make such wrongdoings so that we can finally come to compensate? If Ruto wants to compensate, and he knows who has just messed, compensate with their own money, not public money, not public taxpayers' money. If you really want, you have just directed police to shoot to kill, and then we want to use public taxpayers' money to compensate. How can that be? The minister who directed that kind of direction, and the president himself, who also seconded that by saying people should be shot on the leg, should compensate using their wealth, but not public taxpayers' money. It's wrong to misuse people's money.
All right.
Yes, and any sitting government must know it's just a custodian, yes, of public's money.
Some critics argue that, yes, once again, we've become too critical, that even the media sometimes, and you saw that statement by the Media Council of Kenya, that some of the statements made in media are a bit off, that probably the media has become a bit too critical of issues, and the kind of criticism directed towards the LSK president once again. Do you feel that probably even as a country, that simply because there's a chance of one term and there are many people who are against this president, that anything government is now being seen as a bad thing?
Well, it's rather unfortunate. First of all, we have a government spokesperson who's supposed to be articulating the issues, the policies, whatever the project that the government is doing. I don't know if he's good at his job, at staying silent, or whatever the problems, the handicaps that he suffers in terms of executing that mandate. I do not know. But the image the government projects is one of suppressing the space that the Kenyans want to express themselves within the ambit of the constitutional, four corners, whatever the Constitution does say. Therefore, turning around and saying that, look, you shouldn't criticize the government. Allow the government to do whatever it wants, even though the government is oppressing you, it is stepping on your neck, it is just delving and getting into the deepest part of your pocket to remove the last coin there, to impose and enforce upon you health systems that you don't want, get into the procurement e-system that you have never approved, and all of that. Now, when you say that, wait a minute, there's a limit to which you can go. That is not criticism. You are just voicing a self-preservation reaction. It's natural to say that, look, whatever it is that you're doing to me every day, at the end of the day, I don't have bread, I don't have ugali, I don't have food. That is not criticism. Telling the government that, look, you shooting those protesters and killing them and turning around and saying that, look, I've killed them, I'm going to compensate them. Telling them that's not the way to go about it. And by the way, I didn't hear the Honorable Martha Karua saying that, compensation is wrong. I think what she's saying that let's get the justice for these victims. What happened to Article 26 of the Constitution, the right to life? The right to life ought to be respected by the government. Now, when you say the government has this order that Honorable Gwakuya is saying, shoot to kill, for heaven's sake, the government exists to shoot its own citizens? Who on earth wakes up to lead his people with that sort of a mental attitude? So to say that the government is being criticized left, right, and center in itself is a pointer to the failed state. The institutions are not functional. The healthcare system has failed. We do not have money circulating in the economy. And then you're borrowing left, right, and center. He who borrows is a slave to the lender. He has forgotten that. Then Honorable David Nyoro, for example, on that score, says that, wait a minute. He places the figures on the table. You are borrowing too much, and you will burden us. He's not the one going to repay that money. Honorable Gwakuya is saying that if you made that order, should kill, go and compensate them with your own money. Is he going to do it? He can't do it. Where is he going to get the money? Your tax, my tax. And then he wakes up and says that you are criticizing me.
The issue of shoot to kill must have been taken out of context.
It is not. It is not out of context.
Because what happened was communication from the government on protection of property, public property, and protection of government installations. And Section 61 of the National Police Service Act states circumstances under which a police officer is supposed to use the firearm. And what the president was communicating was just for these people to live according to the law and protect public property, because your rights are as important as the rights of the person who owns property. So if you're a demonstrator, you have those limitations. And the other issue about sensationalizing everything, there are some media houses that have been too sensational deliberately on a campaign to mislead the government. And you know, in Kenyan politics, it is the case that if I'm part of the government, then the government is good. And if I'm not part of it, I'm out of it and working so hard to be part of the next government, then I have to portray the current government as bad as possible so that I can hoodwink or confuse Kenyans to think that I can bring a better alternative. That's the kind of campaign that has been going on. So
through the media?
Through different forms. The media, some politicians, some narratives that are being created that are not backed by any iota of evidence. So that's what has been happening all over. Mm-hmm. It's about those people who are in government and those ones who are salivating to be in government.
What do you make about what do you make of the statement by the Media Council asking or criticizing the media approach in criticizing even this
the Media Council was just being fair that when you share information, it must be objective. It must not be so mischievous or malicious.
But why confine it to this issue?
Apart from being in government, there are certain interests that people usually pursue. Corporates, organizations pursue certain interests. And sometimes they have to twist the government so that they meet those kinds of interests, or they force those interests to come their way. Mm-hmm. Like you've seen people who are interested in business, for example. If they think business is not working so well for them in terms of certain government opportunities, they have to start fighting aggressively so that they get attention of the government. Mm-hmm. And then I saw Akili talking about the government spokesperson. He has his role and has been doing his part. But again, there are many other things that are happening in the country that need to be appreciated. We cannot just be living in the negativity all the time. Talking about the country as if the country is coming to an end.
All right.
But Idemuri, let me just align a bit. And my big concern is, then, should we just close our eyes and leave a sitting state to do anything haphazardly to decide?
No, we don't close our eyes.
Today, those orders was made by a head of state and his minister. Number two, the government is in record hiring goons being manned by police.
Is there evidence to that effect?
Of course.
Mheshimiwa, there's no evidence to that effect. It's a political statement.
I am
the other day I saw your supporters going to welcome, and they were branded, they were going to welcome the former deputy president.
Yes, I have not interfered with.
I mean, the evidence is flashed all over.
But I'm telling you, it is in record and public domain. This city, not anywhere else. Goons being loitering everywhere.
They were not labeled.
Escorted by the police.
Was there a name on them that they'd been sent by so-and-so?
Okay, but let me tell you, my good friend, even though we want to defend this government in what angle, the truth will never die. And it never happened during the night. It happened during the daytime.
Mheshimiwa, I'm not defending the government, I'm defending the truth.
In a great public watch. Yes, goons mugging pedestrians in the presence of police. Being goons breaking people's businesses in the presence of police without action. Are we in Haiti?
Criminals.
Or are we in a democratic
Criminals have been 100. In fact, yesterday I heard about 300 people have been arrested. People who are criminals within the...
After the expose.
So those are criminals just doing their own thing. They cannot be labeled to be a political
Can we allow us as a government to be in place, a government that in fact we are doing anything negative intentionally?
There's no evidence that the government responds to those goons. There's no evidence, Mheshimiwa.
Okay. What evidence you want?
Okay, gentlemen.
What evidence you want?
There's no evidence, Mheshimiwa.
Okay, gentlemen.
You know, these are just
something.
Yeah, you see, the government spokesperson, I thought he should be articulating the issues of the government. Either to counter whatever they find negative that is being out there, that they find, oh, this is injurious to our image as the government. But what does he do? He just maintains his muted silence and he draws a salary at the end of it all.
The government spokesman has been speaking every week. He's been everywhere. He's been all over.
He's been all over, but then
communicating.
He doesn't tell us why the police were following these goons armed with these crude weapons that were going to destroy people's property. And then he doesn't come and tell us.
Of the governor and the president.
The demonstrators were too many, and even if the police were to arrest, they will not arrest everybody.
You see the point that I was making.
So you cannot translate it and make it.
I would want to hear what Wakili wanted.
The point that I'm making is that we all crave for a society where we are governed according to what is written in our laws. Not these ad hoc policies that someone pops up. He gets on the on the top of a roof car, on the roof of his car, as though he was still in some campaign mode. And yet we gave him the mandate, by default or by design, whatever it is, and let's all agree, and I say here the last time, that look, they who voted for Honorable Raila Odinga they who voted for Ruto, both of them have their, people in government, as it were, by, whatever mongrel arrangement that they have. But look, we say that, well, fine, you have ended up wherever you are right now. Give us governance according to our laws.
All right.
So saying that you're not governing according to the law, really, accept it. Have a thick skin. Come on.
Fred,
if you can't stand that heat, get off.
Mistakes.
No.
Remember, when Uhuru Kenyatta did not walk out and communicate whatever he was doing for the country, people turned against him when he was fronting Raila as a presidential candidate. And this is the kind of narrative that has been created out there. Needed some kind of response. And I'm happy that the president is now communicating in person, even telling the people what exactly is happening within the government.
Okay.
If he keeps quiet, this opposition, this toxic opposition in particular, will get away with a lot of propaganda because that's their mantra.
Right.
And it works well for them because that's where they are best at.
Ruto at 3 years since President William Ruto was sworn into office.
As we want us to close that chapter, in e-procurement, really, don't we know what is envisaged by our constitution? Where was the public position in the first place? Why do you want to bulldoze and force things to your people? Why do you want to push people to their throats without following the procedures? And you still want us to support the same mistakes the government makes. And it makes mistakes deliberately. Really?
All right. And that's the other instance where the government has encountered some legal hurdle, the e-procurement, the decree or the circular by Treasury to all government institutions, including county governments, to take up e-procurement system has been temporarily halted by the courts, and to allow for a court case that has been instituted, and we'll be following that as well. It's already before the courts, so we cannot discuss it much. Let me just sample some of the feedback on what we've been discussing over the past few minutes. Eugene Ifula, he says, President Ruto's 3 years in office clearly show a government that wants to engage widely through task forces and commissions. On one hand, this reflects an effort to bring inclusivity, expert advice and reform-driven decision-making. On the other hand, too many task forces can also signal indecisiveness, delay in implementation, and lack of confidence in existing government institutions. Gladson Obwamu, the problem with task forces is that they give recommendations that only stay on the shelves and nothing much. This erodes the little confidence the public has over it. This includes the TJRC, Waki Commission, Maraga-led commission, now the one for compensation. What the public needs is action on the reports, not just formation. Kahura Mwai, government development policies strictly implementing sensible decisions for the betterment of the nation. Task forces are simply a drain on the economy and an intention to hoodwink citizens. Tedious. And Sharon Kananu says, one term. Okay. Again, President Ruto needs good and competent advisors. I was just reading directly what people are talking about. And yes, we continue looking at President William Ruto's 3 years in office. I want to draw your attention to the front page of the Standard. Lavish Addis flight. And this is not the first time we're seeing this kind of headline, especially with regard to President William Ruto's travels abroad. It is one of the biggest things, one of the most talked about issues, Wakili, the fact that this president has been traveling. He was criticized in the first 1 year that he had traveled over 50 times to different nations and it was costing the public a lot of money. Just yesterday, the headlines were talking about how much this government is spending on a daily basis, that the travels by the president, even after they had issued, the head of public service, they issued a circular calling for a reduction by 50% of all government travel, that the budget that the president is using just to travel abroad is going up. Then you see this lavish Addis flight. He had the opportunity to use his presidential jet and Kenya Airways, which has at least 3 flights to Addis Ababa every single day. Instead, he opted to charter a private jet, and the Standard has gone on page 8 to actually describe how much this jet is, how it looks inside, and all these things. And it would appear for the president it's going to be very difficult to beat the allegations that he's simply spending a bit too much on foreign travel.
It's not just a bit too much. This is a president who's self-absorbed with this opulent display. I think he has forgotten about the Romanian dictator, Ceausescu. Ceausescu was steeped in the same sort of pattern as this president. But ask yourself, what was the fate and the end of that Romanian dictator. His own people, when he's addressing them, they turn around and they were shouting, you know, all these praises to him. But in a whim, just like that, they turned around. And within 72 hours, he was dead, assassinated. But the people had sunk into such despondency, poverty, and a shrink in their own existence that they didn't find this president to be speaking to them and that they could resonate with whatever it is that he was trying to say. Come back to East Africa. Look at the late Magufuli. Magufuli did not travel outside Tanzania, but he has transformed, he did transform the Tanzanian Republic. Look at his own address of this jet, the issue. If you look for information, you will find it. Magufuli said that, look, I don't want this jet going to South Africa because the cost that is going to be heaped on the Tanzanian taxpayer is just unbearable. What did he do? He told the Tanzanian people that, look, we can paint the jet here, we can repair it here, we don't need to go out. And what did he do? He had that done there. What we have here is a president who wants to have this display of opulence, and he wants to have this entourage of motor vehicles. Last week, we had President Trump meeting with the oligarchs, the 33 so-called tech billionaires. What was he going to articulate with them? The agenda of Make America Great Again. Mm-hmm. But this person has to take this private jet and he has to incur this 12 million for a 3-hour flight. Did I get that right? Mm-hmm. 12 million for a 3-hour flight? There's a comparison there with a commercial flight that would have cost no more than 150,000 shillings. So is he one who is committed to austerity, the saving of the taxpayers' money? I don't think so. Is he one who is humble and able to actually advance the Kenyan people's agenda outside there without this display of opulence? I don't think so. When you find a president who is so bent on displaying his power and flexing his muscle, he has lost a script. He no longer knows that he's supposed to be leading by example. Can all the presidents of the world follow his example and be counted as leaders? I don't think so. If he were humble enough, he would have said that, look, I don't think I need this private jet. But because he doesn't care about the taxpayers' money and how it's spent, he will go down that way. Lastly, if you look at all the policies that he has engaged in economically, are they policies that the Kenyan people would say are advancing them economically? I don't think so. The Kenyans are crying out, we do not have money in the country circulating. What is the problem? Then he goes out of the country. He is never, in my view, probably I'm wrong, and probably I'm not so familiar with the happenings of Harambee House. He is never in Harambee House. Mm-hmm. That's supposed to be his office. What we see him is loitering back and forth, going here and there. He's inspecting projects that never get implemented. Somehow he's traveling all over. And you made a point that earlier on last year, the year before, he was traveling all over the world. And the question is, what did we as a nation, as a people, derive from those trips? 3 years down the line, he is telling us that, you know, you give me a second term. A second term we give you so that you can travel again on luxury jets like this. A second term that we give you so that, again, you can go on whatever manner of trips that you want to go out there and sign off our sovereignty. When you go to those meetings, you never consult us. Soon, he's going to go to the United Nations General Assembly. Has Parliament sat down and said that, look, we the Kenyan people want you to go to the United Nations, and these are the issues you should be articulating at the United Nations. What do we see rather? He goes to these meetings, and what he does is to read his script, whatever it is. He has all these phrases that he wants to speak to his international audience. We the Kenyan people cannot resonate with that, and I have to remind him, the Romanian dictator, Ceausescu, found his feet.
Afwamba, allow me to ask this question because the control of budget has raised a red flag on excessive executive travel. That the national government is blowing away about 25 billion shillings last financial year on foreign travels alone. This is at a time when the head of public service had already issued a circular directing a 50% reduction in this. Don't you agree that in as far as this, because the president has already come out and pronounced himself on the same, that is simply paying lip service to his own statements on austerity and foreign travel, to be precise?
Fred, I'll answer your question, but first of all, let me respond to what Harrison has said. In Kenya, we are a democracy. You cannot compare President Ruto to dictator Nicolae Ceausescu of Romania. Ceausescu had been president for over 20 years, and he had all those weaknesses, and he had grip on power forever without intention of leaving power. But in Kenya, we're a democracy that goes to election after 5 years. So it is very wrong to compare our president with the dictator Ceausescu. Then, now, when we get to the issue of opulence, it is by national consensus and in our best interest that we cut down on our expenditure. But now, when you get to the issue of the president traveling to Ethiopia in a private jet, we don't expect him to use a matatu to go to Ethiopia. The image of the president is as good as the image of the country. And we're not Tanzania. If Magufuli was doing his things the way he was
Kenya Airways a matatu.
And again,
it has business class where the president can enjoy the luxury.
That's a public transport.
Is it wrong for the president to use public transport?
I'm not saying it's wrong, but that's public transport, and it's easily comparable to leaving your official car to take a matatu. Now you want your president to take a matatu to go and attend international functions so that we please people. You know,
he has a presidential jet.
The opposition has a very specific... The presidential jet could be having issues just like any other equipment that one can use, like your car sometimes stalls. You use alternative means. So you cannot, as a president, from an official vehicle, you land in Ethiopia in a matatu. It doesn't make sense. So we need to be practical in whatever we do as criticism.
What about the debate on austerity? Because the president himself has pronounced himself on this matter. There's official communication from his head of public service.
Now the president communicates, and then there are people who are employed in different dockets who are supposed to carry that responsibility. So if there is excess travels, then specific people who are heads of department or who are heads of ministries are supposed to take responsibility and ensure that they implement whatever the president has issued as a directive.
And Fred is asking you, the State House is expending all these...
Harrison, now you are changing the question. You are interpreting the question for him.
No. Okay. I think the audience...
And he's here. You cannot speak on his behalf.
Let him finish.
So you cannot expect the president to be using a matatu to get to some places. But now, on the issue of austerity measures, every state department has its responsibility to enact or to implement what is the presidential directive.
Do you believe the president has lived to his word when it comes to austerity?
I believe so, and he has been very strict. For him, he has communicated to his officers. Now, it's those officers to ensure that they implement what has been communicated by the president.
The travel budget for State House alone moved to 4 billion shillings, according to the control of budget. This was not the initial amount.
It all depends. And again, when you look at these travels, now if you're talking about State House, it all depends on the purpose of the travel. Sometimes you have to travel to put more value to the country as opposed to just staying around with the rest of us. The president is not like the rest of us.
Allow me to
he has a responsibility that he has been voted for, to work for us, and is our chief diplomat, to create relations with the other countries and do business with other countries.
The question I'm asking him that I would like him to answer is that this is the same president who says that, we are going to have all these digital, nodes and all of our digital highway. Why isn't this president going online and saying that, I'm on Zoom now, does he need, hold on. Does he believe in what he says? And Fred is asking the question, does he believe in that austerity?
You're asking Fred's question, you are changing your role here is not to ask Fred's question.
I asked about the pronouncements.
Is Harrison your spokesperson?
No. I asked about the pronouncements by the president on austerity.
Yes.
His communication about issues to do with expenditure, government expenditure.
Yes.
He has come out and pronounced himself on the matter. His head of public service has issued a circular, which is on record.
Now, that's why I'm saying you got back to mention about State House. And I said every travel is supposed to be quantified in terms of value. And unless we do that kind of scrutiny, it will be difficult.
So you do agree that
we are making progress.
That he and his administration communicates one thing and does the other?
That's not what I'm saying.
Oh.
I'm saying in other situations, like the heads of departments are duty bound to ensure that they implement what the president communicates. But again, when the president is running affairs that are in favor of the country, money is supposed to be spent.
So even
You
if he's
cannot
running
think that
affairs of
zero
the country, he's running affairs of the country, yes, but he communicates one thing, and because of his running affairs of the country, does something different. Do you agree that that is doublespeak?
No.
That he is doublespeak. That's doublespeak. That's doublespeak.
Do you see a problem here? That there's communication that this government says, no, we don't have money, there's no school money for capitation, we are living in dire straits, and therefore this is what they're communicating. There's a circular by the head of public service.
You know, you ask.
Allow me, I'll ask the questions the way I want. Do you agree that this is clear doublespeak from the part of the government?
Edimony. On the outset, let us all be clear, because all of us live here. None of us lives from the universe, and the clear position is very clear that a state, if we really want to walk its talk, it must lead by example. There's no way that you can be giving instructions, directions on what you want to be done publicly, including changing lifestyles. And then you're on top gear, showing people how to spend lavishly. What's wrong with the president using his private jet? Of course, actually, he has one. Why should he move to hire if we have one that actually is entitled to him? I don't think that even touring 4 hours from here to Addis Ababa, there was such emergency that particular jet that actually used could not be able to manage his tour. That could go lavishly to spend 12 million to such a private one instead of using what actually he has. In fact, I don't think that even Silong, as much as BAMBA want to tell us that in fact you want to make a deal, you must spend. We are not saying that, in fact, the head of state should not spend. But he also should spend on a manner that everybody will be able to say, there's no waste here. But when you go to that extent, you have left your jet here, and then you are taking an option of taking a private one. Why do you want to go that direction? Really? Ethiopia is not America, that you can say that maybe your jet cannot be able to give you a freight service. Surely, if really we want to walk our talk, then it has started from the top. And there's no way that, in fact, we can be hoodwinked, that people are just slaves. And they must do what the masters are doing, but the masters has no duty to follow any order that actually they are applying. Mm-hmm. Then, this country, it's all of us. We are under one roof of constitution. If we really want to spend less, it must be all of us.
Yes. Because the issue is about communication here, Bwana, and the president has always insisted that we should live within our means. These are words that have come from him. And the question is, fine, there could be necessity, but what is he communicating vis-a-vis what he is doing? That is the issue here.
Yes, for me, I'm getting back to the point of the value for money. I'm not the president's spokesperson.
No, but do you agree that in as far as communication is concerned, the people would require answers from some of these pronouncements?
Yeah, they will, and I believe, objectively speaking, whatever amount of money is used is supposed to give us value for money. And that's the only thing that needs to be demonstrated by the government. For as long as we are spending money that brings value to us, then we are not supposed to be focused so much on complaining, but focus more on what are the kind of benefits are we getting as a result of this kind of expenditure. Okay. If we look at it that way, then it will be objective more than the political approach.
And I'll go back to the headline.
My big question, Edimuni, is this. The president does not work alone. The president is a system. If you want to master those other agencies, you don't want them to spend. Should you always wait for you to go to look for us, or to search and or to negotiate for us, and then nobody else should spend? Mm-hmm. You are the only one with a window to spend, and nobody should spend. And when anybody else spend, then that is wrong. And when you are spending, it is not wrong. Are you the one who should always late?
Has it been declared that way? It has not.
No. The control of budget, the control of the budget is not inventing figures. Mm-hmm. She said that, look, there is a 3.2 billion expended by State House between the month of May 2025 and June 2025. Hello?
What should be
Hold on, 3.2 billion.
What has it brought in terms of value?
What do you mean value for money? What is the value for money there?
As
Value
opposed
for
to
money.
just approaching it politically.
All right, I'll take you back as we come to the end of the show. I'll take you back to the headline of the Standard yesterday. We talked about debt horror. Since President William Ruto took over, the country has been borrowing a troubling 2.2 million shillings per minute, 137,000.5 million shillings per hour, and 3.3 billion shillings per day. This so far has borrowed 3.5 trillion shillings in the 3 years he's been president. The issue that is raised here is that there's no tangible evidence or visible development project that this money has gone into. Because ideally, any money borrowed should be not for recurrent expenditure, but for development purposes. The mega infrastructure projects that this government is trying to undertake or promising to undertake is being financed through other means. The Talanta Stadium through a securitization system. The Rironi Mau Summit Road through a private-public partnership deal. And one wonders, 3.5 trillion shillings in 3 years with nothing to see or to show for it. Doesn't that leave more questions than answers as we mark 3 years of President William Ruto? Wakili, you go first, as you make your final comments.
It's very unfortunate because, first of all, we have heard these lamentations from the National Assembly, Parliament. You didn't come to us to borrow this money, and you are entering into these sort of secretive agreements. Mine would be that, wait a minute, this Parliament is also being sort of rogue in the sense that they are not calling the executive to account, in the sense that, hey, what do you mean that you borrowed these 3.whatever trillion, on average, $1 trillion per year, and you're collecting our taxes? Why are you going outside the scope of the law to then borrow money without coming back to us, and you're using it in a profligate way? And this is an example. So the National Assembly, in my view, has failed, and it is not calling the executive to account. Probably they were in bed before. I don't know if they're still in bed in silence, and therefore they are not calling the executive to account on that borrowing. Secondly, if they borrow them in the manner that they are borrowing, it means two things for us. One, we are tied to that borrowing in terms of mortgaging our assets and our country. It means that whoever lent us the money will come and realize the security, and therefore we are their slaves. I used to wonder, way before when I was in school, how did the African slave trade ever happen? How is it that these Africans were mortgaged, taken, and shipped off the country? It's because of such leadership, because they allowed it to happen. Now today's slavery has morphed into other forms where people wake up every day, every morning to go eke out a living. And what do they get in the end? These pittance, because the government has sliced off 3/4 of that money. And they tell us, oh, 2/3 of your taxes are going to pay for our loans. And you ask a question, where have these loans gone to in terms of investment and development? And we have a bloated civil service. And every time we hear, oh, we have all these people because they are constitutional, people employed, we cannot fire them and we need to pay them. We need to have a relook at that. And if the Public Finance Management Act says 30% of this money, whether by devolved units or the national government, has to go into development, and then they turn around and say, oh, it's only 8% that went. Parliament doesn't question that. Parliament does not call those people to account. And you find a senator summoning the governor of county so-and-so, and all that they ask him, how did you spend this money, how did it, but they don't call them to account and say that, look, your next apportionment, we will not be able to give you until you assure us that this is what you have in terms of structure for development. Look at Nairobi, for instance. It's falling into pieces. But the question is a trader being taxed, ask for the service charge, ask for whatever it is? Yes. Are they getting the services in return? No. What is the state of the city? We all know it's in such a dilapidated state, and the governor and his retinue of employees are doing absolutely nothing to fix that. Question is then, when you project that now into the nation, who will bear the burden of paying those taxes? Your child and my child. What sort of a future are we building for posterity, for our own children? We are building a nation of slaves. Ruto should not be allowed to borrow a penny more, a shilling more that will enslave our future. When you wake up to go and fend for your child, for your children, and someone in government tells you, I have to slice your money and do what you may, this is how I will spend that money as I want without accountability to you, and I'm going to slash it and plow it into this luxury. That's wrong. Right. It's abominable.
Bonagakuya, yes, whatever Akili says, he could be right. In fact, he's right to a huge extent, that Parliament should to a huge extent be involved in this level of borrowing. So are we saying you as a member of Parliament have allowed the President to be doing these things? 3.5 trillion shillings without anything to show for it.
The law is very clear. And in fact, it's only that you can, there is a window of the 2 to 3 where the government can spend when probably the House is not in session. But when the House is in session, there is a full entitlement by the Constitution that the state should seek mandate from the House. But I can tell you, this borrowing is haphazardly done, even without mentioning any intention to the House. And this is misuse of power. But also number 2, I also need to say, we have committees which are concerned. We have the committee which is, one, the budget committee, and we have the finance committee. Those are 2 committees that should take what we call oversight and report to the House on the usage of what is entitled to the executive. Today, we make budgets every day to State House. Budgets are totally misused. And let me tell you, those committees should understand there is a lot of misuse, and therefore in the next budget, they should slice the budget so that they can have a budget, a linear budget that they can be able to use without misuse. But if you leave the window to executives that you can give them whatever they ask, then at the end of the day, you have given them a route to misuse those funds. But I can tell you, the House in one way is failing because the oversight is not done according to the regulations and the law. And if the oversight is done collectively, and you report the misuse of the money to the floor of the House, then you'll be exposing the executive. But that's not what's happened. Number 1, I would like to say, as much as we want to say that we are on the trajectory, we are totally failing. We have a project of the government, which William every day wakes up telling us affordable housing. Today, go to houses that Uhuru started at Pangani. They have sold. Go to houses that are here at Karioko. They have stored. Move all the way to Kabati. The houses that are based on are just along the road. They have sold. Why have that project stored for years and they are not moved to completion? Where the government has imposed levies to tax Kenyans. And that money, we are seeing William asking for other use of that money because that money is idle. Why does not that money be used to complete those projects? Right. Why do we want to have those white elephants at this particular time?
And all the major projects that the president has taken are being funded separately. SHA, there's a fund for it. Affordable housing, there's a fund for it. So the question is, where has the 3.5 trillion shillings that was borrowed gone to?
Debts are not bad, and I believe in accountability. But we are sensationalizing this issue.
Really?
If you look at Japan, Japan is a developed country. Its debt is 235% of the GDP. US is 123% of the GDP. UK is 98% of the GDP. Ours is not even at 70% yet. We're a developing country. Most of these countries develop as a result of debt. What I believe in is transparency in the debt. And Mheshimiwa has just indicated that actually it is the parliament that has failed. Because if there is a budget committee and finance committees that are involved in following up on what we are supposed to have as a debt, Why is Parliament also coming out to complain? Like the immediate former chairman of the budget committee is the one who is so much outspoken about this debt issue. It's so surprising and contradictory. Doesn't make sense at all. And when you look at the so-called 3 trillion, you forget that we also have debts that were incurred during Uhuru Kenyatta's time that are supposed to be paid. A lot of money, 8 trillion, was borrowed by the Uhuru Kenyatta regime. And whatever we raise as revenue and whatever we get as loans again, is supposed to service the loans that were borrowed by the Uhuru Kenyatta regime. So why are we posing accusations towards this regime as opposed to even looking at the whole?
The question was 3.5 trillion shillings. What do we have to show for that money?
Now it's up to the government to come out and explain to the country that this is what we got, this is what we used, this is what we did. For as long as we've not gotten that explanation, we cannot just come and make declarations that it has done nothing or it's nowhere. We need to locate it. Even those ones who are saying the Auditor General is supposed to come out and explain where they are found, if there is any impropriety.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Let me say this, Fred, before you...
Very briefly, about 30 seconds only.
Yes. There is no country that has developed because my good friend has mentioned Japan and the UK and all those. They developed because they had their culture. The Russians have developed because they have their Russian language. The French have their French language. They have their vehicles they develop. The Swedes have their language, and they have developed the Volvos and the like. And the Chinese are doing what they have their language. Here we are still colonized, and we're still using the language of the colonizer to do business, to transact, to do everything, and even to borrow. What am I saying? The Chinese give you a loan in the Chinese language. And you have people there in Treasury, you have people in the AG's office who do not understand Mandarin or a word of it, and they go and append their signatures. And down there in the small print, which they never read, it says, we have mortgaged A, B, or C or D of your assets. And then suddenly we have then to cough up all these taxes.
All right. Very interesting headlines this morning. The Standard goes with lavish Addis flights, and they are a very nice description of this plane. Oh, I would want to be in it. 1 million state workers gobble up half of taxes. That's the Daily Nation. Wash, how Juba dirty cash is laundered in Kenya. Another negative headline. People Daily, some analysis from west to east. Ruto's global gamble backfiring, matters diplomacy, as well as what we see there on the front page of Taifa Leo, matters to do with what we've just been discussing here, and I'm struggling to get it. Issues to do with the task forces that the president has formed in the last 3 years. We continue to look at President William Ruto's 3 years in office. He marks his 3rd anniversary as president this Saturday, 13th of September. Thank you so much, James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, Fuamba FC Fuamba, governance analyst, and Harrison Kenyanjui, advocate of the High Court, our panelists this morning on TV47, helping us understand the headlines, even as we continue to mark the 3rd year anniversary of President William Ruto as president. My name is Fred Indemuli. Let's hope for better headlines tomorrow. Good morning.